The House will come to order. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, after lunch here. We've got some enrolled acts and some standing committee reports that we need to go through, things like that. So first thing we'll do is some enrolled acts that have since come since lunchtime. Oh, yes, we got Ms. Sherwood's got a privilege before we get things forward too far along here. Representative Sherwood, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Body, welcome back for lunch. I hope that you are well hydrated, well situated in your food consumption and your knowledge consumption. I would ask for you to stretch and rise and welcome in the South Gallery. We have some incredible women who have a heart for service. They are attending Leap into Leadership. They are here to learn how to run for office at the local level or at the state level or maybe even beyond. And these are women who are in our communities, who are leaders. And we just want to say good afternoon and welcome to the House.
Please welcome the House and Representative Newsom.
Never mind.
Good to see you. Huh? Oh, never mind. Okay. No, do it again. Do it again. It's all right. Representative Stivar, you have somebody you'd like to introduce?
Privilege, Mr. Speaker.
By all means, please.
We need to recognize Representative Newsom, Sandy Newsom up there. I worked with her in the House.
Thank you for coming and sharing the day with us. Welcome to the House. All right. Any other announcements or privileges? We good? All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are at that business in order of signing of enrolled acts. The first enrolled act for our considering, enrolled act number 3. Reading clerk, please.
House Enrolled Act number 3 being original House Bill 34, an act relating to compensation and benefits, authorizing firefighters to participate in retirement system plans as specified, providing appropriations, requiring rulemaking, specifying implementation, and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the Legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign enrolled act number 3 of the House of Representatives, having been original House Bill number 34. I have so signed. Next enrolled act for our consideration, enrolled act number 4.
House Enrolled Act number 4 being original House Bill 35, an act relating to the Office of State Lands and Investments, authorizing firefighters to receive hazard pay and paid time off as specified, providing appropriations, requiring rulemaking, and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the Legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign enrolled act number 4, having been original House Bill number 35. I have so signed. All right. Standing committee reports.
Senate File 44 is sponsored by Management Council. Gambling amendments, an act relating to crimes and offenses. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 3 revenue, to whom is referred Senate File 44 engrossed. Gambling amendments, respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Lean, Locke, Lucas, Riggins, Storer, Stivar, Wharf. Noes, Representative Campbell. Representative Locke, Chairman.
You believe there's something else more? Is there more? Okay.
Senate File 46, sponsored by Management Council. Skill-based amusement games, liquor establishments, an act relating to gaming. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 3 revenue, to whom was referred Senate File 46 engrossed, skill-based amusement games, licensed liquor establishments. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Brown, Campbell, Lean, Locke, Lucas, Riggins, Storer, Stivar, Wharf. Representative Locke, Chairman. Senate File 50, sponsored by Senator Love. State Engineer, Surface and Groundwater Study, an act relating to water. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 50 engrossed. State Engineers, Surface and Groundwater Study, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Davis, Hornstrom, Johnson, Ottman, Provenza, Schmid, Strzok, Winter. Representative Winter, Chairman. Senate File 69, sponsored by Water. Waste and Stormwater Infrastructure Study, an act relating to water. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 69 engrossed, Waste and Stormwater Infrastructure Study, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Davis, Fornstrom, Johnson, Ottman, Provenza, Schmid, Strzok, Winter. Representative Winter, Chairman. Senate File 109, sponsored by Senator Boner. Cowboy State Agricultural Trust Fund, an act relating to the administration of government. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 109 engrossed, Cowboy State Agricultural Trust Fund, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Davis, Fornstrom, Ottman, Provenza, Schmid, Strzok, Winter. Noes. Representative Johnson. Representative Winter, Chairman. Senate File 110, sponsored by Senator Hicks. Residential Property Tax Revisions, an act relating to taxation and revenue. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 3, Revenue, to whom is referred Senate File 110 engrossed, Residential Property Tax Revisions, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Brown, Campbell, Lean, Locke, Lucas, Stivar, Wharf. Noes. Representatives Reagan and Storer. Representative Locke, Chairman. Oh.
Stand at ease here briefly.
Senate File 58, sponsored by Tribal Relations, Wyoming Indian Child Welfare Act, Sunset Repeal, an act relating to Indian child welfare. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways and Military Affairs, to whom was referred Senate File 58, Wyoming Indian Child Welfare Act, Sunset Repeal, respectfully report same back to the House with a recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman. Senate File 95, sponsored by Senator Pappas. Drivers and Motor Vehicle Services, Third-Party Providers, an act relating to motor vehicles. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 95 engrossed. Drivers and Motor Vehicle Services, Third-Party Providers, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman. Senate File 107, sponsored by Senator Nethercott, Motor Vehicle Registration and Plate Issuance System, an act relating to motor vehicles. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 107, Motor Vehicle Registration and Plate Issuance System, respectfully report same back to the House with a recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Noes. Representative Banks. Representative Brown, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Reading Clerk. Okay, I've got some re-referrals here. Representative, committee number 5, Ag. Representative Banks. He's out of here. Representative Locke, you've got a re-referral as well. Let's grab yours. Okay, committee number 3, Representative Locke.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 3, Revenue, would like to re-refer Senate File 110 engrossed to committee number 2, Appropriations.
Thank you, Representative. I've only got 3 right now, so I'll read them off to you. Okay, next we have some re-referrals on bill numbers, Senate File 109 from Ag. Vice Chair Banks, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to re-refer Senate File 109 to Committee Number 2, Appropriations.
Okay, we've also got Senate File 60. Oh, excuse me, 50. Yeah, try that one.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to re-refer Senate File 50 to Committee Number 2 Appropriations.
And also Senate File 69.
And re-refer Senate File 69 also to Committee Number 2
right.
Appropriations.
All right, thank you very much, Chairman. Appreciate that. I don't have any 84. These are the only three I have right now. We'll do some messages from the Senate here right now, ladies and gentlemen. Reading clerk, please, if you would.
Message 201. Mr. Speaker, the Senate did concur on House amendments to the bill listed below by the vote indicated. Senate File 16, subleasing of state lands. Ayes 29, excused 1, conflict 1. Message 202. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 34, firefighters retirement plans. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 203. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below passed the Senate on third reading and by the vote indicated. House Bill 35, firefighters paid leave and hazard pay. Ayes 30, excused 1. Message 204. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 105, K through 12 school facilities appropriations 2. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form by the vote indicated. Ayes 25, noes 4, excused 1, conflict 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 205. Mr. Speaker, House Bill 107, local government distributions. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 30, excused 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 206. Mr. Speaker, House Joint Number 2, Federal Mineral Royalties State Share. The House bill listed above passed on third reading in an amended form as follows by the vote indicated. Ayes 30, excused 1. The Senate respectfully asks the House to concur by adopting the listed amendments. Message 207. Mr. Speaker, the bill listed below failed to pass the Senate's third reading by the vote indicated. House Bill 85, post-election audit procedures. Ayes 9, noes 21, excused 1. Sincerely, Ellen Thompson, Senate Chief Clerk.
Thank you, reading clerk. Unless there's something else that the chief clerk has going on. Mr. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, thank you. I move that the House resolve itself into committee of the whole.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed? No. Congratulations and welcome, Representative Chest. Clouston. He locked up. He almost slid.
Thank you. There we go. I've got some. All right. Come to order. Committee of the whole will please come to order. The first bill for our consideration, Senate File 4, the reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 4, sponsored by Labor, Medicaid rate increase EMS services, an act relating to medical assistance and services. Mr. Speaker, you're at Committee Number 10, Labor, Health, and Social Services, to whom is referred Senate File 4, Medicaid rate increase EMS services. Respectful report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Clouston, Ottman, Rodriguez-Williams, Thayer, Yin. Noes, Representatives Guggenmoss, Heft, McCann. Excused, Representative Wasserberger. Representative Rodriguez-Williams, Chairman. This bill was re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 2 appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 4, Medicaid rate increase, EMS services. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Bear, Haroldson, Pendergraph, Sherwood. Noes, Representative Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure? Chairwoman Rodriguez-Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 4 do pass. And there is also a Committee of the Whole amendment for this as well that I would move.
She moved it. Yep. Okay. Would you like to move the amendment, Chairwoman?
Yep. Mr. Chairman, I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 4.
You've heard the motion on Standing Committee Amendment number 1. Is there any discussion?
So,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, essentially what the Committee of the Whole amendment does is that in committee, we supported this bill overwhelmingly, but we also learned from the department that oversees our health and the group that advocates for our hospitals here in the state that the money will perhaps follow the volume. So in other words, if we have a town or a larger community that uses more volume or more calls for EMS services, the money would follow it. And so essentially what this amendment does, I worked with both the department and the advocacy group, is it would require the department to adopt a model that really balances the funding. So you'll see on the amendment that we would insert on page 2, line 2, that the department shall develop enhanced Medicaid rural and super rural fee schedules for EMS provided by ground ambulance service providers. And this isn't foreign to the department. This is something that they've done before, and we're happy to comply with. I think overall there was a desire to move towards this direction. So.
Discussion on the amendment? Representative Thayer?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chairman. I'm on and for this amendment. I think it just tightens up the language and just makes a stronger bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Filer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think I'm on it for the amendment. It just, is there like a number between rural and super rural? I'm just trying to wonder, I mean, we're pretty rural, the whole state is, but I just wonder what's super rural.
Representative Yin?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. So these are super rural and rural are designations that Medicare already uses for Medicare payments. The bill is about matching Medicaid payments to Medicare payments. The super rural is lowest 25th percentile of population density, and rural is outside of urban. So super rural is just extra rural, and a lot of our state probably counts as super rural.
Is there any further discussion on the bill? Not hearing any, or on the amendment, sorry. Not hearing any. Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1, say aye. Opposed, no. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We're back on the bill. Question being called. Hearing no further discussion. All those in favor of Chairwoman Rodriguez-Williams motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 4 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Any of those opposed? Okay. Senate File 4 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 12.
Senate File 12, sponsored by Transportation, Wyoming National Guard Reenlistment Bonus Program, an act relating to Defense Forces and Affairs. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 12 engrossed, Wyoming National Guard Reenlistment Bonus Program, respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman. This bill was re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 12 engrossed, Wyoming National Guard Reenlistment Bonus Program. Respectfully report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Bear, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Sherwood, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 12 do pass. And I will turn the explanation of the bill over to the representative from the Sweetwater County area.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Representative Wiley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Body, this Senate file is pretty straightforward. It's kind of a cleanup and keep up as we move on with our folks that carry our sword and our shield. They have redeployments. We have new batteries for our HIMARS, and this is kind of a continuation of what we have to do to keep that strength force up to par and to the requirements that the federal government has for some of the funding as well. Please vote aye.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Pendergraft?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for the bill. In the 10 years that I served, I can tell you that reenlistment bonuses were a big deal. It's a lot cheaper to retain somebody with a bonus than it is to train somebody and start all over. Plus, we need the soldiers out there that have a little bit, and airmen, I should say, them less so. We need them out there that know what's going on. That's the backbone of our defense. And I just think the return on investment for this is outstanding.
Thank you, Representative. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the committee of the whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 12 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 12 has passed the committee of the whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 13. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 13, sponsored by Transportation, Wyoming National Guard Member Referral Amendments, an act relating to Defense Forces and Affairs. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 13 engrossed, Wyoming National Guard Member Referral Amendments. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman. This bill was re-referred to Committee Number 2, Appropriations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 13 engrossed, Wyoming National Guard Member Referral Amendments. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Bear, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Sherwood, Smith. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the committee of the whole rises to report it, do so with the recommendation that Senate File 13 do pass. And I turn the explanation of the bill over to the big bear from the land of Durr.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Representative Larson?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Folks, this is the second of two bills. The first one you just heard was on retention. And the second bill, this bill is really focusing on referrals. Both of these were bills that the military department has really used and has found success in retaining and enlisting new individuals. When we created the referral program, it was really initially set up to be for members of the Guard. This bill expands it to veterans of the Guard, employees in the military department, and let me find that. Veterans of the Guard, current employees of the military department, or recruits beginning the enlistment process. As we looked at states around us, the state to the south of us has a recruiting bonus of $1,000. The Cornhusker state has $1,000. The good state up there where the Balkans at has a $2,000 recruitment bonus. We were at 500. We found that the military department shared with us that these guys to the south of us come up here and try to like to poach our guys because they can get a higher recruitment fee. And so we made the recommendation that that be raised to $1,000, as well as expanding who could receive the recruitment fee. And so with that, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Representative. Is there any further discussion on the bill? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 13 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, say no. Senate File 13 is passed the Committee of the Whole. The next bill for our consideration is Senate File 59. The reading clerk will read the bill.
Senate File 59, sponsored by Education, K through 12 Language and Literacy Program, an act relating to language and literacy competency. Mr. Speaker, your Committee Number 4, Education, to whom is referred Senate File 59 engrossed, K through 12 Language and Literacy Program, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Andrew, Guggenmoss, Lawley, Singh, Strock. Noes, Representatives Bratton, Erickson, Williams. Excused, Representative Kelly. Representative Andrew, Chairman.
Thank you. You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Andrew?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 59 do pass, and I'll explain the bill. Senate File 59 creates a comprehensive statewide K-12 language and literacy framework grounded in the science of reading. For several years, Wyoming has passed strong literacy bills, particularly focused on K-3, but those provisions now exist in the statute as a patchwork. What this bill does is bring clarity, continuity, and alignment by organizing those efforts into a single coherent program that spans kindergarten through grade 12. At its core, this bill establishes the Wyoming Language and Literacy Program, and the goal that every student develops strong reading, writing, speaking, and comprehension skills through evidence-based instruction, assessment, and intervention, while also strengthening partnerships with families. First, the bill clearly defines terms such as dyslexia, developmental language disorder, evidence-based literacy instruction, and multi-tiered system of support, using nationally recognized standards. These definitions were developed with extensive stakeholder input to ensure they are precise, statute appropriate, and usable in practice. Second, every school district must adopt a district language and literacy plan. Universal dyslexia screeners at defined intervals, diagnostic assessments when students are flagged, use of high-quality instructional materials aligned with the science of reading, and a multi-tiered system of support. Tier 1 for all students, Tier 2 for targeted intervention, and Tier 3 for intensive individualized support. Third, students identified as having reading difficulties or at risk must receive an individualized reading plan. These plans are evidence-based, developed in collaboration with parents, integrated into students' educational record, and monitored with quarterly progress updates to families. If a student already has an IEP, the IEP satisfies the requirement. This bill does not duplicate the special education process. Fourth, the bill addresses instructional practice. It does not ban the three queuing outright, but it prohibits its use as a sole method for teaching word recognition or decoding. This was carefully drafted to ensure that districts use comprehensive, evidence-based instruction rather than relying on a single, incomplete approach. Fifth, districts with persistently low reading proficiency, defined as 60% or more of students not reading at grade level, must provide additional supports such as summer literacy camps or extended learning opportunities for early grade students with identified needs. Six, this bill strengthens teacher preparation and professional development. I have a committee of the whole amendment that may remove this, but for informational purposes, literacy competency will be required for teacher licensure and renewal aligned with role and grade band. Reading specialist endorsements are aligned with evidence-based instruction, and ongoing job-embedded professional development is required, differentiated by responsibility. Finally, this bill aligns implementation with oversight responsibilities to the department and authorizes internal reorganization to support literacy work and requires transparent reading so that policymakers and the public can see outcomes over time. Senate File 59 does not invent a new philosophy. It organizes what works, aligns Wyoming with best practices nationwide, and ensures that students are identified early, supported appropriately, and taught using methods grounded in evidence. This bill is the product of careful, months-long collaboration. It was developed through extensive work among Wyoming education leaders and practitioners, including the department that oversees education and their literacy cabinet, made up of 40 Wyoming elementary and secondary teachers from across the state, the legislature's Joint Interim Committee Number 4 and Subcommittee, certified dyslexia specialists, and the State University's College of Education and local advocacy groups. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Chairman Andrew.
Thank you.
We're on amendment number 1. Would you like to move that amendment for further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I will now move Committee of the Whole Amendment Number 1 to Senate File 59 and ask for your favorable consideration. So what this amendment does is it removes the portion of the bill that put additional requirements on teacher licensure. This was probably, in the communication I received, the most controversial part of the bill. There was a lot of concerns that perhaps teachers would not be able to get the additional training they would need, and that they may possibly lose their job if they couldn't get relicensed. I think a lot of this probably would have been pretty easy. You know, there are other requirements for renewal, but I don't think it's totally necessary to the bill. And I think we'd be okay to take it out because it has been so controversial. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Andrew. Further discussion, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So on and for this bill, this has been a passion of mine for about 6 years, and I am beyond elated that this interim committee brought together in a phenomenal bill, absolutely phenomenal bill. This bill had teeth.
Excuse me, Chairman Brown. We're on the amendment number 1? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It had teeth. In my opinion, removing this language with this amendment yanks the teeth out, because what this does, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, is it says you don't really need to be certified to teach how to read. That's kind of a spooky situation in my books. We're dedicating this time, this effort, and everything to build this program to try to teach teachers how to read and how to enforce this. And as it stands, the bill came out of committee with complete belief that this is probably a good thing, that we should have this certification. But as it's gone through the other house, come to this house now, we're still hearing, well, it might be tougher to some teachers to get this. I would submit to this body, vote no against this amendment. This is what we want. We want our teachers to be able to teach how to read. If we don't have the teeth in this bill, in my opinion, ladies and gentlemen, we're not doing anything. The certification is one of the most paramount pieces of this bill, in my opinion. Yanking this portion out really just kind of gives us a feel-good bill about literacy. I don't want to just feel good, I want to do good. So on and against.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Representative Thayer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And the chairman of this bill, thank you for this bill. And also thank you for this amendment. I can't believe how many emails I received on this in our rural communities and not being able to get the certification in the timely manner that was originally listed in this bill. So on and for this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Thayer. Representative Larson.
Thank you. On in support of the amendment, I too have heard from the land of districts where I live. And contrary to my good chairman on transportation, I think it's problematic not only in the reading, but we do this throughout our education system where somebody may be very well educated in multiple topics, but's licensed in, say, math rather than reading, but is qualified, and there's never a mechanism for them to test out to just prove that they have the capacity and the expertise to teach. This requires from 70 to 120 hours of training that I think if there had been a provision allowing them to test out, maybe I'd be okay with it, but this just puts an extra burden on people that probably already I think in many cases already has the ability to do this. So on in support of the amendment.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Is there any further discussion on Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 59? Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 59, say aye. Any opposed, say no. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We have a second amendment. Representative Jarvis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2 to Senate File 59 and ask for your favorable consideration. So there's been a lot of controversy going around about this on the fact that we have spent years in our state trying to get literacy correct. And there's been a lot of discussions on what that would look like and how it would happen. And I think even last year I brought an amendment or a couple of amendments that just further cleaned up the current statute that we had. Full disclosure, I was part of the select committee initially until there were some conversations that occurred that I just kind of brought up the teachers are going to lose their jobs if we move forward with this. And it was said, yeah, that's the point. And that was when I walked away. And I did create another literacy bill that actually fully encompassed exactly the work of the last 5 years. But I do want to urge that you guys consider what I have to say, because there wasn't a single school district representative on this committee. And so the actual enactment of this bill is what I'm struggling with, not necessarily the literacy content and verbiage, but really how does this look for school districts? So my amendments start with, and I just want to draw, because I want to give you some context here to this. On page 4, that first paragraph where it talks about district language and literacy plan, I want you to understand this bill actually requires districts to create 2 different plans. There's a district language and literacy plan, and then there's an MTSS, a multi-system or multi-tiered system of support. So those are 2 intensive plans and frameworks that would be required of the districts to create. So a lot of my amendment looks at consolidating these two because I think we can get there in an easier way that involves a tremendous amount of less paperwork. Then I'd like you to take a look at page 5. When it says evidence-based language and literacy instruction, this bill morphed originally from like a K3, and then it was like a K6, and then all of a sudden it became a K12 at the last minute. And so I want to highlight a couple things. This paragraph right here, that's paragraph 7, is phenomenal for teaching reading. It is not a K-12 friendly definition. And why? Because when you look at the word explicit, when you say explicit in teaching jargon, that means that you're going to read it directly from the book and do it exactly how you're told, how it describes, and not deviate from it in any way, shape, or form. Beautiful when you're teaching phonics. Absolutely mandatory and necessary. I don't think an AP English class should have to do that. And when we encompass K-12 and we throw this into a K-12, we're saying that every single teacher that teaches literacy has to teach it explicit, systematic, cumulative, diagnostic. And there are some terms in here where language comprehension would be beautiful for AP, but isn't in that context. Now, when you look at it, K-12 for reading intervention, for teaching reading, even when sometimes when you're teaching reading at the high school level, then this is appropriate. But this bill says all instruction will be that way. It doesn't say intervention, it says instruction. And so I just want everyone to take that into context. On page 6, when it says high-quality instructional materials and practices, I want everybody to understand what practices means. That means how the teacher delivers the information. We are going to have the state tell all of our teachers how to do this. This is going to no longer be anyone who teaches literacy, the ability to actually, those practices, have that art of, maybe I want to deliver this information this way, or maybe I want to deliver this information this way because my kids in my classroom learn best when I do this. That language inhibits and removes that ability to do that. It also inhibits the ability for teacher-created curriculum or even new curriculum, because this curriculum it will be required to be researched. And in order for a curriculum to be researched, it takes many years of outside consultants doing research to show up and to be able to give that. So those will be off the table. If you look at the next paragraph, paragraph 10, when we say at risk, and we've had this conversation here before, and in elementary school, we kind of use colors. There's green, yellow, red. Green kids are considered proficient or on track for having the skills that they need. Yellow kids are right on the verge. They're missing a few things here and there. And red are those ones that are really high risk, high needs. So when we say at risk, we're actually including all of the kids that are some risk and high risk. So those kids that may just be missing a couple little vowel sounds are going to be significantly impacted in the way that this bill is written and how it is laid out. This requires a lot more testing and paperwork, and will require kids that are on some risk to be included in a category of response that really, truly is not needed. So if you look at page 7, that multi-tiered systems of support, that's the other program, the other plan that I was talking about that when I was talking about there are two different things that are competing here that are going to be requirements of the school districts. School districts have MTSS systems. Can they be better and can they be worked through? Absolutely. Can this be a great thing to have the district, and it is honored in the amendments to truly flesh that out and be able to demonstrate that and turn it into the WDE in a method that would meet the requirements of both of these things. And I also want you guys to understand the MTSS system doesn't work in high school because high schools don't have MTSSs, they have intervention courses. And I know there's been a lot of debate over the hours that should be considered full-time or not full-time. But in the state of Wyoming, we have a lot of high school graduation requirements. And so there are already a ton of courses that kids, you would have to be a full-time student in order to graduate, just taking the requirements that school districts already require. The second paragraph there on that page, this requires districts to purchase additional assessments, and they will be required to give exactly what the state requires. In that last paragraph, the 3 queuing system, that one is very sticky in Wyoming because one of our highest performing school districts uses this. And it really is this fight between organizations on the who knows best, and that got entered in here. So I just want everyone to just be aware that it's there. Page 8, universal screener. Here's why I'm saying K-6, you guys, and not K-12. There are 2 organizations that I'm aware of that actually have nationally normed screeners that exceed 6th grade. Other than that, they don't exist, and they go to 8th grade, actually. So if we're gonna screen kids and we're gonna progress monitor them, high school doesn't even work in this because you have to use the progress monitoring of 8th grade materials. So regardless of the interventions, you would only be bringing the kids to the 8th grade reading level with what currently exists at a national level. We don't have the resources in the nation to do this. Not to mention, in 12th grade, we don't even have an assessment that we give our students in the state of Wyoming. In this second paragraph, each school district shall adopt and implement. This means that the districts will have to use a plan and the guidelines created by WDE. The autonomy to do this will be extraordinarily limited. In that bottom paragraph, districts will now have to contact kindergarten parents at the beginning of the year and tell them your child's struggling before we've even taught them anything. Typically, then this is something that I fought for last year and we got into statute, that we would start contacting parents at mid-year kindergarten, not at the beginning of the year, because I can tell you when you look at the screening results at the beginning of the year for kindergarten, it's typically for the districts around 70 to 78% of the kids are at risk, which means we will be putting 70 to 78 of our kids on 4-page individual reading plans at the beginning of kindergarten before we've even taught them a single thing. On the next page, page 9, the dyslexia screener. This is a great addition to K2. I just question, why are we continuing to screen 2nd graders when if in kindergarten and 1st grade, they've tested proficient? That seems a little bit on the over assessing, that maybe it doesn't need to be quite to 2nd grade. It probably could end at 1st grade unless the kids are at risk, and then go ahead and give it again. This Also, in this paragraph change where it says universal screener, we also changed this in statute last year too. We added the word or the letter S for universal screeners because then it allowed districts to pick, like the WDE recommends 5 different screeners for us. And sometimes we can use this screener to assess this, and we can use this screener to assess this. This bill actually takes us backwards in that. And so now we're back to only being able to use one screener with the language within this document. So it doesn't honor the work that over 5 years the districts had come across and actually came and changed last year. In the next section, in section C, that just highlights there again that it's going through 12th grade and we don't assess kids in 12th grade. On that final D paragraph, diagnostics will be mandatory for all at-risk students. So when I'm giving the screener and I can easily see that the only thing that the kid needs is short vowel sounds, I'm now subjecting them to a diagnostic screener. And I just want to be really clear. Diagnostic screeners have to be administered individually, one-on-one, and they run anywhere from 5 minutes to 2 hours. So when this agency gets to pick these screeners on which diagnostic assessments, there are times, and I'm going to tell you, this bill also requires us to create experts. I'm going to say this again. This bill requires us to create experts. And I can tell you that I can listen to a child read within 1 minute. I'm able to pretty much know exactly which direction to go. So if we're going to create experts, and then we have to give mandatory diagnostics on top of it, I think this is a lot of additional testing to really add to the load of what's happening in the classrooms. On the next page, page 10, in that first paragraph, it says instructional materials and practices, and we highlighted this. And this is where the districts will use. So the WDE is going to require us to use very specific ones. So the autonomy for teachers is gone. In paragraph A, it says the word explicit again, and we talked about that, not appropriate, because this is the requirement that they are provided, all kids in Tier 1. Tier 1 means core classes. That means the instructional class that every single student takes. There it is, explicit instruction. The teacher must read from the book and do exactly how they're told to give that information in all K-12 ELA literacy classes. On the bottom, where it says supplemental, I want to draw your attention to that word. So it says in Tier 2, you'll provide supplemental evidence-based language and literacy instruction. Supplemental means something different. So if this language stands as it is, that means when you're giving intervention supports, you have to use a different resource and a different method. And I can tell you, there are some kids that just need to have it introduced to them beforehand. And then there's some kids that just need to revisit it a couple times and review. This actually prevents that from being able to occur with the way that the language is said. On page 11, in that first part, we also changed this last year in the language where students couldn't be pulled from their core instruction. No student could fall behind because they were not present in the language and literacy instruction. This removes this says instruction and intervention. It allows, it's the same problem that we had before. So it's now recreating that when we put in language that no student would be allowed to ever be pulled from tier 1 instruction. And it is a way, if you're going to pull them during tier 1 instruction, this is a surefire way for kids to fall behind. In that next paragraph, paragraph 4, there's that word at risk again. All students at risk of poor reading interventions will have an IRP, a 4-page document that will progress monitor them. This includes our some risk, those kids that it just has a couple things. And there's no language in here for a kid to get off an IRP. So there's no language that when I actually remediate after I have to put them on a 4-page document because they don't know their vowel sounds. And then within 2 weeks, they know their vowel sounds. I'm stuck giving this child interventions till the next benchmark. That's the middle of the year, according to the language in this bill. Section D, parent, this is requiring the parent must be present. This IRP has to be developed in collaboration with the student's parent or guardian, and it has to be implemented in 30 days. So I want to talk a little bit about this because this is a clear understanding that if districts would have been involved with this, when we do benchmark assessments, we set up 30-day window periods. We set up this window for which all of our kids are assessed. And then at the end of that, we get the composite scores for all students. This bill says that from the day that that kid is assessed, we have 30 days to actually get an IRP in place. And my question is, how exactly do you do that when you're not even going to have the information if that kid was assessed on that first day? How do you get the information when you get it on the 30th day? When you're looking at it, this creates an absolute nightmare for being able to manage this and actually enact it, because it's just not feasible to be able to do. And what happens when, I don't know about your districts, but our district has a lot of shift workers. These parents aren't able to get here to be able to support that work. And so there's no language in here that allows for the parent to just say, hey, by the way, school district, I trust you. If the parent wants to be part of it, absolutely fine. If the parent can't make it, let's not make it mandatory in this that they have to be present. Now, on page 12, in this section, this highlights that, again, where it's mandatory to put every child that's at risk on an IRP, and that will be 70 to 78% of our kindergartners that are walking in the door, and we're going to pull mom and dad in and say, hey, your kid's struggling because we've never taught them anything yet, and we're going to do a 4-page document and try to explain to them how the school has already deemed your kid to have reading failure problems. So in this next section, each school district will be required, I just want to bring attention to this, to have the resources and the interventions. If the districts don't have the required curriculum that WDE is mandating, they will be required to purchase it. And I've told this story before to people. In the district that I'm at 9 years ago, that curriculum, K-12, cost $1 million. So and that's not even including the interventions requirements that will also be part of this. On page 13, this will require all CTE, PE, art teachers, paraprofessionals, administrators to complete WDE required professional development. the pushback is that language, no, that wouldn't require them. We already do in K3. We actually, because of the language that mirrors this, we do require PE teachers and music teachers and art teachers because it said instructional staff. We are doing this now. On 13 in that next paragraph, I want to draw your attention to this bill as a whole because at no point does a district get to stop having oversight from the state. There's nothing in here where we used to have in statute, if kids met 85% proficiency, that they would be able to have that. That's gone. So the state will always, no matter how well a district does, have that level of oversight on districts for reading and literacy. And then again, an extraordinary amount of oversight with very little, or with people that are being required to be experts. So I also want to just say that this is something that's been ongoing in school districts and with the state agency. It may not be the case right now, but there are a lot of times where because we pay state employees what we pay state employees, that they can't find quality staff. So our school district's credentials will far exceed those of the people who are getting to make these mandates and requirements on us. At the bottom of 13, this bill, that section, I'm not sure why they want that information. You can get it when you submit the report. So it's over-reporting. And then page 14, it's that word practices again. School districts or individual teachers will no longer have classroom instructional strategy autonomy with the way that it is worded. And I truly don't believe that was the intention of this, but I do just want to draw attention to that is the way it's worded. 14 at the very bottom. We've had a lot of conversations about the role of local control and school districts and how that is extraordinarily important to the state of Wyoming. This bill dramatically shifts the power of local control to the state level. Page 15, districts will no longer be able to choose their PD. The state will be deciding all of this for districts. And then that third paragraph, this will put every district on corrective action indefinitely. On page 16, that amendment went through. My amendment that I'm proposing actually puts some more teeth back in it with the requirements for that section. And I worked very closely with districts and the Professional Teaching Standards Board to actually have the clear language and the timeframes for which could be enacted. On page 17 at the very bottom, where it says the Board of Trustees in each school district shall implement and administer, boards don't implement and administer. They advise us to implement and administer, but they don't actually do the implementation and the administration of these things. On page 18, it says that the section 3, the State Department of Public Instruction will utilize necessary resources to establish a literacy division. They've already told us several times they have a literacy division, and it is in there. If you look on the documents that they turned into us, they have one. The list of approved, again, universal dyslexia, it's a lot of this is a lot of state oversight, and this does grow government. On page 19, and I'm almost done, guys, I'm sorry, hang in there with me. On line 6, monitor school district compliance. And if we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, they're going going to be able to take corrective action. I just want to end with this. Wyoming school districts have never lost this level of local control. This bill requires teachers to be experts, yet still imposes state-level hand-holding requirements that will never allow for local control in literacy again. So the amendments that I'm bringing to you actually take and make this bill, because literacy is extraordinarily important, and take all of those concerns and actually just rectify them. It makes it so school districts can truly enact this. And I want to draw attention to the section where we deleted out that teachers needed certification, and that was that section where teachers lost their jobs. And I want to talk to you a little bit about my proposed language, because the teeth, like honoring the work, that was something that was very important to the committee, was that it had teeth. So my proposed amendment actually proposes that if a teacher doesn't have these very specific, and I worked with PTSB, the structured literacy, the dyslexia, or the reading endorsements, that they'll be required to do 2 days of PD every year. Why 2 days? Because the Professional Teaching Standards Boards runs their credit awarding on 14 hours. And when you have 14 hours, then we can easily track this information at the state level. So if a teacher moves from district to district, we'll all know exactly if they've done this work or they haven't. And so it's in 14-hour increments, because it truly makes it accountable and something that we can uphold. And once they've obtained certification in these structured literacy, then they move to the PD that everyone else does. And that's every 3 years, 3.5 hours. And this is for all teachers. This is saying CTE, everybody. That literacy is really that important. And we really do need to uphold this. But that leeway is, you'll do 2 days of PD indefinitely until you can pass these assessments, but you won't lose your job. And I'll tell you, eventually, they're going to come to a place where they can pass the assessment, whether it be the K-Perry or whatever is put in place. But it doesn't force people to lose their job, but it also gives that accountability. And that is the rationale, because we're allowed 10 days of PD a year in school districts. Why 2? Because we have to do all of the other state mandated trainings, like suicide prevention, those lovely 2 hours, and all of our compliance trainings, and all of, like, there's so many things packed into this that to hijack any more than 2 days would be something that school districts then cannot meet the requirements and the needs that are involved. I will tell you that once somebody gets a structured literacy, or once somebody gets to this level, that expert level, they're lifelong learners, you guys. You don't have to tell them to do a darn thing or any more learning. They are dying to go to conferences. They are dying to go learn more. They want to know this information. We don't need to make this mandatory like this. We just need to get them there. And the other section with the, it takes and it makes it so there is a cap on when you can be free of state level oversight, that if your students, 80% of your kids are proficient. And it also highlights that, hey, by the way, your district, or if your district hasn't improved 3 years in a row, you have to go on corrective action. So then that's when the state intervenes. Why 3 years? Because for rural districts, a single kid can make or break it. And so when you're looking at the data, this really does honor the capacity of what it means to be in small districts. And it honors that flexibility for those districts, so that if one kid comes and goes, they're not automatically on corrective action. In my short 13 years as an administrator in the state of Wyoming, I've found that when we ask and we don't tell quite so heavy, things go a lot better. And I can tell you, school districts across the board, when you recommend versus require, it will go over so much better. People will be like, wow, let's go check out that resource. Let's go do this. We're going to make this happen so much faster by making recommendations, not requirements. And in this, the other things that I just want to draw your attention to, on page 7, the amendments, they give the autonomy to the teachers back within limits. I want to say that, within limits. So that being said, I ask for your aye vote on all of these amendments.
Thank you, Representative Jarvis. We are on Committee of the Whole, Amendment number 2 to Senate File 59. Any further discussion? Chairman, well, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, members.
What?
That's too much amendment for me. But the good representative, the bringer, brings some great points there, and those points are exactly what I've been hearing and exactly what in committee and since committee and from the bringer. And I appreciate all those points. I think if we came back with, we could split some of that up to where a feeble mind like mine can follow. And then I will have some other amendments, second and third reading also. But these are the reasons I voted against this bill in committee, because the list is long of holes in this bill, like we are all aware of. Thank you. And Mr. Chairman, my recommendation is to vote no on this amendment and yes on the bill, and we have a lot of work to do still, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Williams. Representative Campbell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to go the opposite direction and say absolutely yes on the amendment. And truly appreciate the hours of work. I don't have the years of dedicated in this one field because I worked in a lot of fields. So I rely on the experts on the floor that is their expertise and lifelong dedication. So I truly appreciate all the work. And will say the reason I'm going to vote for this amendment, I have heard from 5 school districts. Only one of those is mine. And I typed out all of the complaints they had about this bill, and this amendment hits every single one of them. So hearing from 5 school districts and dozens of teachers, this amendment addresses the challenges they had with this bill. So I'm going to be in favor.
Thank you, Representative Campbell. Representative Harshman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate the bringer of this amendment, because I think for all of us, it took us through the bill page by page. There's a lot of parts to this. A lot of this is really, really good. And I think, you know, the history of this, you older people in here, you grew up with phonics. That's how you were taught to read. And that kind of had a change. And it was kind of when that law passed, I think it was no child, but I think it was actually no consultant left behind. And we started this corporate kind of education instead of these local curriculums. And so we had this whole language experiment. And there's a time and place for whole language when a kid's older. And then you combine that with less reading going on at home, you know, more screen time with the phone. And so it's a multi-part deal. But I think I really appreciate the amendment because you explained the bill to all of us. The amendment's not going to pass, I don't think. But I think these pieces can come back like the good representative and member of the committee. So thanks for doing that. It was a great bill explanation. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative Harshman. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2, say aye. All those opposed say no. Committee of the Whole Amendment number 2 has not been adopted. We are back on the bill. Any further discussion on the bill? Hearing none, question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Andrews' motion that when Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with recommendation that Senate File 59 do pass. All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. Senate File 59 is passed Committee of the Whole. We can keep going. We're gonna keep going. Okay. Next bill for our consideration is Senate File 67.
Senate File 67, sponsored by Senator Larson. Wyoming State Guard amendments, an act relating to the Wyoming State Guard. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 67 engrossed. Wyoming State Guard amendments, respectfully report same back to the House with the recommendation to pass with the following amendments. Ayes, Representatives Banks, Brown, Garinger, McCann, Posey, Tarver. Noes, Representatives Larson, Nicholas, and Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman. This Senate's file was re-referred to Committee number 2, Appropriations. Mr. Speaker, your Committee number 2, Appropriations, to whom is referred Senate File 67 engrossed, Wyoming State Guard amendments. Respect the report same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes, Representatives Alaman, Angelos, Haroldson, Pendergraft, Smith. Noes, Representatives Bear and Sherwood. Representative Bear, Chairman.
You've heard the reading of the bill. What is your pleasure, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it do so with the recommendation that Senate File 67 do pass. Further move the adoption of the Standing Committee amendment. And before I turn over the bill for explanation, I'd like to dispose of that amendment if I could. And ladies and gentlemen, this amendment is literally just cleanup language brought to us by our LSO staff. Instead of specifying sources, this was specifying a single source for the appropriation. That's all this is. And then if we can vote on that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn the explanation over to the good mustached representative.
Question being called. All those in favor of Committee of the Whole Amendment number 1 to Senate File 67. Oh, standing, sorry. Question being called. All those in favor of Standing Committee number 1 to Senate File 67, please say aye. Anybody opposed, no. Standing Committee of Amendment number 1 has been adopted. We are back on the bill. Representative Heft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Throughout our state's history, we've had situations arise where we needed to organize groups of people to take care of problems that arise when, say, our law enforcement was out of town on another duty. And what this would do was organize a state guard and would allow the governor to organize and maintain it within the state. As the governor would deem necessary, that's true. Our chief executive, is that better? There we go. It would allow him to preserve public peace and execute the laws of the state and keep down any kind of turmoil that come up, even in the case of riot or say, even wildland and fire response. And so what the state guard would do, it would come under the governing of the National Guard, and those same rules would apply. If I can get to page 3. And it would be for the purpose of coordinating state defense activities, and the governor shall appoint a Wyoming State Council for this defense. So it wouldn't be something just thrown together. This would be well organized and vetted. In section 2 on page 3, you'll see there's been a $25,000 appropriation for the purposes of appointing and convening a state
Council of Defense for establishing and equipping the Wyoming State Guard as the governor seems necessary.
Thank you, Representative Heft. Representative Pendergraft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We heard this obviously in committee number 2. And my honest opinion that this bill needs a lot of work. But I voted to bring it to the floor because I wanted to have a little bit of a discussion about the disparity between how the National Guard now exists and what the state constitution calls for. And I kind of look forward to a little bit of participation if we could. Are we going to continue to ignore the state constitution in favor of what has been, the Wyoming militia has been, in my view, co-opted? Or is there a change? This is something I struggle with, and I wanted some other opinions if that's possible. I will be a no on the bill, however.
Thank you, Representative Pendergraft. Representative Sherwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Raise your hand if you are asleep on the floor. Okay, just checking. It's awful quiet in here. So I know that it is after lunch and we're tired, but every bill deserves our full attention. I wanted to share with you, body, the reasons that I voted no on this bill coming out of committee. One, my understanding is the governor already has the authority to stand up this council. 2, typically when we see a piece of legislation establishing a task force or a council, it's very prescriptive. It talks about the numbers of people, the expertise that they should have, what kind of per diem that they're going to receive. 3, as an appropriator, I'm always looking at the dollars. So when I asked the good bringer of the bill where the amount for the appropriation came from, how it was determined, and did not get an answer, that is very concerning to me, that there was not a lot of thought put into the dollar amount tied to this bill. Shows me that it needs more work. Thank you for waking up, body. I appreciate your attention.
Thank you, Representative Sherwood. Body, we're going to put this on hold until we have a quorum. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Representative Filer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the last speaker actually spoke the truth on this exactly, that the governor already has this authority. It says that the militia, this is in our constitution, it says, the militia of the state shall consist of able-bodied qualified residents of the state and those non-residents who are accepted into the service between the ages of 17 and 70 years old. And this is be exempted by the law of the United States or of the state. So, but all the residents having, well, you know what I'm getting at here. It's already here. I don't know why we're creating a task force. Task force for what? To tell us to do the same thing that's already written in our Constitution. I understand, that, just in case our National Guard gets called up, we got to remember too, our National Guard, their commander in chief is the executive of the state first. So we always got to remember that too. You don't just get to switch title type orders without the executive's approval while you're in the Guard. So it's already allowed. Thanks.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Riggins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is, by striking out Department of Defense and related language, does that have any impact on our financial relationship with the federal government in any such way. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Speaker Pro Tem Harrelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So obviously we got the re-referral into our committee just for the fiscal note. So a lot of the discussion regarding the actual bill did not come through our committee. So asking maybe its original committee, what was the nexus really behind this? Was there a conversation of a true need? Was there, I mean, one of the concerns that we have was when we asked, as the good appropriator just mentioned, about the fiscal note, we did not get any direction of why that fiscal note was $25,000. It was just what they thought. And so we're just, I think there's just a lot of unknowns here, a lot of questions. And I think obviously always when bills come across and we get them in the second house, this is a concern, right? This isn't something that we always know the full scope of it. But there is a concern that I have that this is not something that's been fully vetted or thought through. So I would agree also with the prior speaker that constitutionally this already is in place. So just wondering if maybe when it came before its original committee on the House side, if anything was brought forward as to why this is a need.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem. Further discussion, Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think I've got 31 again. So ladies and gentlemen, I'll be the first one to tell you right now, it's not my responsibility as the chairman of a bill that came forward to defend a bill, so I'm not going to defend a bill. What I'm going to tell you about this bill is what we heard in committee and also what we heard in the interim when this bill was brought to us on the last day of our last meeting, asking us to sponsor this as committee-sponsored legislation. This is already in statute, ladies and gentlemen. If you look at this bill, it's very clean. It's already there. Legislation is already in place for this to take place. What I will tell you is the bill as was introduced before it went through the process on the other side of this building was not a fantastic bill, not something that I personally would have voted for. When that bill came across the hall, it actually cleaned up a lot of current statutory language. So if you look at the difference between the introduced version and the engrossed version, there is a lot of language struck from those two different bills and a lot of cleanup language that has been added to this particular bill. I'm not going to sit here and tell you to vote aye or vote nay. I'm just trying to give you a little bit better understanding of what has occurred in the process. This bill is a cleanup bill now of current statutory language. This bill also authorizes the chief executive downstairs $25,000 to form a council that he could have formed for the past 140 years. They've chosen not to. They've had all the authority. Everything has been there for the past, I think it's 135 years. They have the authority to do it. There was no necessary need to do it. And there was no necessary need to have an appropriation of $25,000 that was pulled out of thin air. So to answer those questions, I personally cannot. Maybe the co-sponsor of the bill will have a little bit more information for the appropriations team and for the rest of the body. But just to give the full disclosure of what this bill looked like and what it has transformed to is now more of a cleanup bill than anything else. Current statutory language, as it sits in these green books back here behind me, honestly doesn't look very good, but we haven't used it. Do we need another bill that gets this and does even more? I honestly can't say yes or no. So vote your conscience on the bill, and if you want to spend the $25,000 and move this on, have at it, but that's the process and how it came through our committee.
Thank you, Chairman Brown. Representative Heft.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What this bill does is allow to appoint a council to get this organized. We are in somewhat of a conundrum here because when our guard leaves, we're left with no protection in the state. What this would do was at least get this organized. It's been in, like has been already stated, it's in law. We can do this. We haven't organized it. Its primary purpose is to provide support and backup for the state's National Guard. When they're away, this will provide a mechanism to protect the citizens of the state. And so it has a very limited scope. Like we already stated, it amends our existing state guard statutes, and these amendments would streamline the process to organizing our state guard should the governor choose to do so. I think this is something we really should do. You know, in my neck of the woods, I have family members that are concerned about where I live because there's a looming natural catastrophe in where the stones are yellow. And we very well could have a disaster where we need people on the ground right away. One of the things I have on my team at my workplace is I have a very experienced Marine chief in charge of mechanization for many years in the National Guard. He told me that in a catastrophe like that, their mobilization would take them approximately nearly 2 weeks to get to Park County. So vote your conscience on this, but I think it's something we should try and get organized and get moving, because I think we have a very, a real threat looming on the horizon when our guard is gone. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Heft. Representative Nicholas?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, ladies and gentlemen, on and against the bill. So if you go and look at the original Senate file, it had a pay and allowance section in it that they took out. So the question is, well, why did they take it out? Well, my guess is because once you see what this would cost, the bill would never pass. So this council and the governor then decided what the pay is as they put this together, and then they'll have to come and ask us for an appropriation to pay for it. But what they're going to recommend, and what was in the bill originally, was that the pay allowance authorized for personnel is equal to the rank of a National Guardsman. So I just got online and I'm looking at what, if you're a National Guard, what your typical cost is just for infantry, when you just come in and you're just a soldier. And the average cost is about $10,000 a year. So let's say we have 150 of these gentlemen and ladies. That's a minimum of $1.5 million a year just to operate this entity. And in addition, they've got training. And when they're in duty, it's $4,000 a month if you're on active duty. Then you have to have uniforms, you have to have weapons, you have to have guns, you have to have all those things and training. So I'm guessing this is going to cost at least $3 million a year at a minimum. And 150 doesn't sound like a lot of soldiers to me. So how many are we going to need? And what will their purpose be? So ladies and gentlemen, I think we have to stand back and think about this in the big picture on why we really need this. So on and against.
Thank you, Representative. Any further discussion? Oh, sorry. Thank you. Chairman Rodriguez Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On and for the bill. We don't need to stand back. We need to stand up for our state. The good co-sponsor of the bill mentioned what happens when our guard leaves the state. This it clarifies the authority of the governor or the chief executive of Wyoming to organize a Wyoming State Guard. I don't recall watching any testimony during the interim where our current chief of our current guard was in opposition to this bill. There was full support. There was a lot of testimony from across the state, from civilians that support this bill. It establishes a foundation for future action. Again, what's going to happen when all of our guard has to leave the state if there's a national crisis? This clarifies things. On and for.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Representative Feiler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think what the bill actually does is telling the executive branch we're going to give some money, and you shall do what's in the Constitution right now. I think that's what the bill does. No? I mean, we're asking for $25,000 to set up a task force that is going to be appointed by the governor, by the Constitution that we have for a state militia. That these are things that he can already do. I think we're going to hit this home, and then when we hear the whole outcry of the National Guard's going to be gone. Well, if the National Guard's gone, all the equipment's gone. All the planes are gone. All the tanks are gone. All the equipment's gone. All the guns are gone because they deploy with their equipment. So, and I do also believe that if that was to ever happen, I'm pretty sure it would take one press release. Hey, we need some help, folks. Anybody between the ages 17 and 70, let's band up together and we're going to protect our state or whatever it is that we're fighting against. I don't think we need to go down a path of where we're going to have a militia take care of the militia without the militia training. Because all of our Guards members have to go through the same exact training as an active duty does, no matter what the position is. You got to go through the same basic training, same tech schools, all the same training in order to make rank. All the structure is exactly the same. So I just kind of want to think about this a little. Let's be realistic about it. I don't know if we need to appropriate $25,000 to allow the executive branch to do something he can already do.
Thank you, Representative Filer. Chairman Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Again, I don't really have a dog in the fight, but what I want to point the body's attention to is the fact that if you look on page 1, section 1 here, is Wyoming Statute 1910-101A and B are amended to read. This is current statute, ladies and gentlemen. We're not creating a new guard. We're not giving new authority. We're doing none of that. As the current statute reads, 1910-101B, for the purpose of coordinating desirable national defense activities, the governor shall appoint a Wyoming State Council of Defense. It's literally already here. There's nothing here. All we're doing is now changing the words in here to come up and say to preserve public peace, to execute the laws of the state, and to suppress tumult, riot, mob, or invasion, to respond to either natural or man-made emergencies within the state, to support national wildland fire response. All the things that he's already, number one, eligible and required to do by constitutional authority and state authority. And then if you continue down, we're adding that to section A, which I find to be interesting because that's actually already covered in section B in current statute. And we're taking out the term national and inserting state defense activities. That's all this bill is doing now. The other language that was in this that I found to be very problematic, to be completely honest with you, when this bill was introduced, is not in here anymore, and it actually cleans up current statute. The $25,000, if you don't want to do that and you like the bill, vote her through, and we'll take out the $25,000 in the second reading amendment, if that's what you feel. I will wholeheartedly admit, sitting on this committee for 10 years, I can tell you the strength of our forces on both the air and the Army side. We don't have tanks. We do have HIMARS. We don't have tanks. About 3,000 troops in the Army, about 1,900 troops in the air, of which when these were deployed right after September 11th, 2001, we never lost more than 50% of our actual deployable forces in the state. So the scare tactic of the entire Guard is going to be uprooted and we're going to ship them all off, like they did back in the early years of statehood, is not the case any longer. We are required to keep a state-level force here. That's what this Defense Council was originally entrusted to do. If you guys like the idea of having a state guard, kind of like what the Lone Ranger or the Lone Star State has, where they have their own Ranger battalion, their own Rangers to do their stuff, fantastic. We'll form that. It's going to have a cost, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to be a heck of a lot more than $25,000. If you like the bill, you like what we're trying to do, fantastic, vote for this. If you don't, and you think that this is already in statute and they already have the authority to do it, vote no.
Representative Heft?
Appreciate the debate. I'm going to finish with this. If you look on page 3, section 2, this is for convening a Wyoming State Council of Defense so that we can get this organized. My take is that this would give each municipality the ability to organize a group to take care of problems when law enforcement or our guard or any manner that we've already put in place is no longer able to help. It would be the first line in a catastrophe. All of those other agencies would come into play first if they weren't, and then they could call in any additional help that would have training. We're not talking about supplying tanks and bazookas and all the rest of this stuff. This would be citizens working in their own communities on a first line of defense in case of a natural disaster or any manner of insurrection. I thank you for your consideration. Vote your conscience.
Thank you, Representative. Are you ready for the question? Question being called. All those in favor of Chairman Brown's motion that when the Committee of the Whole rises to report, it does so with the recommendation that Senate File 67 do pass. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, no. The chair is in doubt. All those in favor, please rise. Katie? Me too. I'm an aye. I'm an aye. I'm an aye. Okay. All those opposed, please rise. You may be seated. Okay. By a vote of 20 to 17, the bill passes. Keep going. What's that? What's that? Done? Okay.
All right.
All right, reading clerk, please, if you'll read the Committee of the Whole report.
Mr. Speaker, your Committee of the Whole, having had under consideration bills on general file, begs leave to report as follows. Senate File 4, do pass amended. Senate File 12, do pass. Senate File 13, do pass. Senate File 59, do pass amended. Senate File 67, do pass amended. Representative Clouston, Chairman.
Yeah, I need to talk first. Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that the body rise and report.
Well, no, we got to do the Committee of the Whole report. He's got to do this first. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he does it. Yep. Then you're ready now. Representative Clouston.
Thank you. I move the adoption of the Committee of the Whole report.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. It's been adopted. Congratulations, Representative Clouston. Hey, Jeremy. I need we get this done in old accent. I'll have you come up and do that. We just adopted, you did those, that's all done. Yeah, hang tight. Yeah. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as you well can see, we are struggling desperately. Thank you. As you can see, we are struggling to be able to keep a quorum because there's a lot of folks that are trying to attend the meeting down here, and there's folks that have been pulled from the body elsewhere, everywhere. So what we're going to do is we're going to do enrolled acts, and we're going to finish out this evening here with all the different reports and things like that, and then we will adjourn, and then we will be back tomorrow morning is our plan at this point. And so all the rest of the stuff on the Committee of the Whole, we will be back and make every effort to get those things caught up. But at this point, ladies and gentlemen, we are struggling to keep a quorum, and so then we can't conduct business at that point. So there's many that want to go and see what's going on down there. So with that said, next order of business for right now will be, we are at that order of business of signing of enrolled acts. Reading clerk, if you would please, enrolled act number 11.
Senate Enrolled Act number 11 being original Senate File 16, an act relating to state lands, amending provisions and creating exemptions regarding the subleasing of state grazing lands, providing definitions, establishing a non-owned livestock fee, repealing obsolete provisions, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign enrolled act number 11, having been original Senate File number 16. I have so signed. Next enrolled act for our consideration, enrolled act number 12.
Senate Enrolled Act number 12 being original Senate File 6, an act related to medical assistance and services, codifying current state criteria for Medicaid eligibility, specifying applicability, requiring rulemaking, and providing for an effective dates, being enacted by the Legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign enrolled act number 12, having been original Senate File number 6. I have so signed. Next enrolled act for our consideration, number 13.
Senate Enrolled Act number 13 being original Senate File 9, an act relating to controlled substances, providing for an enhanced penalty for controlled substances offenses related to the distribution or delivery of fentanyl to minors, making conforming amendments, providing definitions, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign enrolled act number 13, having been original Senate File number 9. I have so signed. Next enrolled act number 14.
Senate Enrolled Act number 14 being original Senate File 17, an act relating to state lands, removing the restriction on the number of authorized Good Neighbor Authority employee positions, requiring employee positions to be funded only using funds from the Wyoming State Forestry Good Neighbor Authority revolving account, authorizing gifts, donations, and bequests to be deposited into the account, prohibiting the acceptance of real property for purposes of the Good Neighbor Authority, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I am about to sign enrolled act number 14, having been original Senate File number 17. I have so signed. Next enrolled act for our consideration, number 15.
Senate Enrolled Act number 15 being original Senate File 32, an act relating to emergency telephone service, requiring a study on the next generation 911 service, authorizing a grant program to fund shortfalls in current 911 service, requiring rulemaking, making a conforming amendment, requiring a report, specifying applicability, providing an appropriation, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the state of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign enrolled act number 15, having been original Senate File 32. I have so signed. Next enrolled act number 16.
Senate Enrolled Act number 16 being original Senate File 52, an act relating to the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resource Funding Act, providing for the funding of large projects under that act, specifying large projects approved for funding in 2026, authorizing distributions from the Wyoming Wildlife and Natural Resources Trust income account for approved large projects, providing for the reversion revision of funds providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 16, having been original Senate file number 52. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act number 17.
Senate Enrolled Act number 17, being original Senate File 68. An act relating to irrigation projects, authorizing irrigation districts, watershed improvement districts, and the water conservation districts to direct a portion of annual district funding for major maintenance projects, authorizing investments of major maintenance accounts, authorizing water conservancy districts to assist mills for the major maintenance projects as specified, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 17, having been original Senate file number 68. I have so signed. Next Enrolled Act 18.
Senate Enrolled Act number 18, being original Senate File 79. An act relating to sales and use tax, revising the sales tax chapter to include the administration of the use tax, repealing duplicative provisions, making conforming amendments, specifying applicability, and providing for effective dates, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 18, having been original Senate file number 79. I have so signed. Last Enrolled Act number 19.
Senate Enrolled Act number 19, being original Senate File 80. An act relating to sales and use taxes, removing the requirement for specified notices relating to sales and use taxes to be sent by mail, authorizing electronic notices, making conforming amendments, and providing for an effective date, being enacted by the Legislature of the State of Wyoming.
I'm about to sign Enrolled Act number 19, having been original Senate file 80. I have so signed. All right, that's standing committee reports.
Senate File 25, sponsored by Travel. Landowner license limits and limited quota hunt areas. An act relating to game and fish. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 25 engrossed. Landowner license limits and limited quota hunt areas. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Byron, Campbell, Connolly, Harshman, Jarvis, Provenza, Storer, Thayer. Noes, Representative Wharf. Representative Byron, Chairman. Senate File 26, sponsored by Travel. Game and Fish Property Tax Exemption Amendments. An act relating to taxation and revenue. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 26. Game and Fish Property Tax Exemption Amendments. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass. Ayes. Representatives Byron, Campbell, Connolly, Harshman, Jarvis, Provenza, Storer, Thayer, Wharf. Representative Byron, Chairman. Senate File 61, sponsored by Senator Jones. Motor vehicle sales to family members not taxable. An act relating to taxation and revenue. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 8, Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs, to whom is referred Senate File 61 engrossed. Motor vehicle sales to family members not taxable. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Brown, Geringer, Larson, McCann, Nicholas, Posey, Tarver, Wiley. Representative Brown, Chairman. Senate File 66, sponsored by Senator French. Donated hunting licenses amendments. An act relating to game and fish. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 66. Donated hunting licenses amendments. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Byron, Campbell, Connolly, Harshman, Jarvis, Provenza, Storer, Thayer, Wharf. Representative Byron, Chairman. Senate File 84, sponsored by Water. Voluntary Water Conservation Program. An act relating to water within Wyoming's portion of the Colorado River Basin. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 5, Agriculture, State, and Public Lands and Water Resources, to whom is referred Senate File 84 engrossed. Voluntary Water Conservation Program. Respect the report, same back to the House with the recommendation that do pass with the following amendments. Ayes. Representatives Banks, Davis, Fornstrom, Johnson, Ottman, Provenza, Schmid, Strzok, Winter. Representative Winter, Chairman. Senate Joint Resolution number 9, sponsored by Senator Barlow. Keeping public lands protected and decisions local. A joint resolution requesting Congress to recognize the protection of Wyoming's freedom of access to public lands to allow responsible development of horse resources, recreation, agriculture, hunting, fishing, trapping, and conservation under the multiple use frameworks to protect local participation in land management decisions and to keep public lands available to the people of Wyoming. Mr. Speaker, your committee number 6, Travel, Recreation, Wildlife, and Cultural Resources, to whom is referred Senate Joint Resolution 9, Keeping Public Lands Protected and Decisions Local, respectfully reports same back to the House with the recommendation that it do pass. Ayes, Representatives Byron, Campbell, Connolly, Harshman, Jarvis, Provenza, Storer, Thayer. Noes, Representative Wharf. Representative Byron, Chairman.
All right. Any committee announcements? I think every one of my chairmen are so, well, I got one chairman left. Representative Andrew. I got a few. Yeah, they're starting to pop up everywhere. Look at that. There's another one. I got 3 chairmen. 4. I got all my chairmans. I take it all back. You guys are all here. You're awesome. Representative Andrew.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 4, Education, will meet Friday, February 27th upon noon recess in Capitol Extension Room 3 to hear 2 bills. Senate File 35, School District Cell Phone and Smartwatch Policies, and Senate File 81, K-12 Public School Finance 2. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Locke, number 3.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your Corporations Committee will meet on tomorrow, Friday, February 27th, upon noon recess, and we will hear 2 bills, Senate File 113 and Senate File 117.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Brown, number 8, Transportation.
Mr. Chairman, you have plenty of chairmen, and I just wanted to let you know that today was your last meeting for your Transportation, Highways, and Military Affairs for the 68th Legislature in this Capitol, and we will be meeting on March 3rd for our interim committee meetings.
Very good. Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Rodriguez Williams, number 10, Health and Labor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 10 will meet tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. We'll hear 2 bills, Senate File 23, Outpatient Examination and Commitment Length, and Senate File 57, Transparency in Hospital Service Pricing.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Bear, number 2, Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 2, Appropriations, will be meeting tomorrow, Friday, the February 27th at 8 a.m. in Capitol Room E301 and online to continue our discussion about Senate File 101, Second Amendment Protection Act and amendments, as well as referrals as assigned. In addition, Joint Conference Committee for the budget will be meeting tomorrow at noon in the same room, E301, upon noon recess.
Thank you, Chairman. Representative Larson, number 9, Minerals.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 9, Minerals, Business and Economic Development, will meet tomorrow at 8 a.m. to consider Senate File 102, Senate File 123, Senate File 21, and if we have time, Senate File 99.
Thank you, Representative Larson. Representative Lean, number
Thank
1,
you.
Judiciary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Your committee number 1, Judiciary, will meet Monday at 8 a, or Friday, excuse me, Friday at 8 a.m. We'll hear Senate File 87, Felony Interference with a Police Officer Amendments, and Senate File 111, Select Committee on Gaming.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Chief Clerk, does that clear the deck? There's the deck. Mr. Speaker Pro Tem, as our Majority Floor Leader, do you have a motion?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House adjourn until tomorrow, 10 a.m., February 27th, the 16th day of the legislative session.
You have heard the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. All those opposed, no. The motion carries. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. House stands adjourned. You guys are getting slow on that.